Your job, if you're operating management rights, is run your business in a service delivery model. If you don't like people, this is not the industry for you. It's not enough to do your job. You must be seen to be doing your job. If you want to relate that to management rights, you got to make a bit of noise around your clients for them to realise that you are the guy who mows the lawn, trims the trees, cleans the place up.
Just be visible when people are coming and going. That's half the battle won.
The value of your management rights business is in your caretaking agreement, which is linked to your term. In order to maintain that value, you need to get top-ups to your agreements, which means you need to maintain a good relationship with your committee and ultimately your owners. As Trevor said earlier, it means maintaining relationships with every single owner in the building. It's a central tenet to management rights. It is a people business.
Welcome to RB Radio. I'm Frank.
And I'm Trudy. Join us as we explore the very exciting world of the accommodation industry.
We're going to walk you through the ever-evolving landscape of hotels, motels, caravan parks and management rights, but more importantly, the communities and the stories that underpin them all.
From market trends and expert predictions to the personal success stories and many lessons learned, we're going to cover it all.
Join us and let's embark on this journey through the weird and wonderful world of the accommodation industry together. Welcome back to RB Radio. My name is Frank Matus. Normally I'd be joined by my fabulous co-host Trudy Crooks, but she's out conquering the world today. So instead I've got two very special guests. Firstly, we've got Alex Cook, who's not only a director of Resort Brokers, but he's also a director of ARAMA, which is the Australian Resident Accommodation Managers Association. Welcome, Alex.
It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you for having me, Frank.
Excellent, good to hear. And also we have Trevor Rawnsley, who is the CEO of ARAMA. Thank you very much, Trevor. We know how busy you are. Thank you for coming to join us here on RB Radio.
You're welcome.
Trevor, we'll jump straight in, and thank you both for joining us today, wearing your ARAMA caps as directors. ARAMA is the peak industry association representing the resident managers in the management rights space. Talk me through your day, Trevor. You're a busy guy. What's keeping you busy at the moment in the walls of ARAMA?
Yeah, well, the primary purpose of ARAMA is to provide service to members and to protect and defend the industry. So right now, we're working on some potential changes in legislation that may or may not have impact directly on operators. In New South Wales, there's some licensing changes, so we're trying to simplify the licensing process. We've done a pretty good job so far. We want to keep that work going. And in Queensland, we've got some really exciting news about compulsory professional development, which I think we want to talk about.
We want to definitely talk a little bit about that as well. And Alex, you know, you've been a member or a director of ARAMA for a number of years now, and a member before that.
Indeed, yep.
Yeah, ARAMA talks about being, you know, leading advocacy and education and connection. What do you see as your role as a director of ARAMA, but with that commercial mindset that you've got as well?
I think Trevor would be happy for me to say my role, I've tried to get involved as much as possible, but my role primarily has been on the advocacy front. Trevor, myself, and John Marnie, who's joining us later today, worked very centrally in the government strata review, which took place predominantly over 2023, 2024, and that potentially had some negative ramifications for the industry. But yeah, Trevor, myself, and a couple of prominent lawyers in the industry fought a very hard, long effort involving a lot of lobbying, government, a lot of talking with key government legislatures, and we're able to secure a good outcome for the industry, which really puts it in a safe position for, I'd say, you know, the foreseeable future.
Well, that's a really important point. So, Trevor, we were talking off camera about, you know, who's our audience today, and we've got a broad audience, and so we've got our operators who do listen, but we've also got people who are interested in management rights as a change, because we've talked about it before, where management rights might be the $9.4 billion industry that nobody's heard about. Can you give us a bit of an explanation of what you're doing for what managers and operators should be looking to ARAMA for, and what new entrants to the market could also be looking to ARAMA for?
Look, I'm sure somebody will explain about the finer details of the management letting rights business model, the combination of on-site letting and on-site building management. You know, if you're listening to this and you're doing a due diligence on the industry, management rights is a service delivery model. So your job is to look after your customers. And it's a very resilient business, as the economists will tell you and as the brokers will tell you. It's really withstood quite a number of economic impacts, not the least of which COVID, and it came out the other side in a stronger position. How is that possible? Because operators look after their customers. Their customers are the lot owners, not necessarily the holiday guests or even the tenants. They are important, but your service delivery is focused on satisfying your clients, which are
your clients, which are the lot owners, the people that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you are a short-term operator, your guests will come and go, but the people you're responsible on a day-to-day basis are the people that have got skin in the game.
Absolutely. They are the wealth creator for your business. So, it's like a restaurant identifies who their customers are and they want them to be repeat customers. And you've got the captive market. As an operator, you have a captive market within that scheme. So it's up to you. If you serve up sloppy food, they're not going to be happy with you.
You got to do your job.
It's that simple. Just do your job. In my journey, back in the early 2000s when I bought my first management rights, I spent a lot of time on tourism because I hadn't had any real exposure to tourism accommodation. When what I should have been doing was spending a lot of time on lot owner, investor owners and owner occupiers and committees and understanding strata. So that's, ARAMA does provide that information and education now that is important. Being involved in the tourism industry is important. Being involved in residential tenancy is important. But your job, if you're operating management rights, is run your business in a service delivery model. If you don't like people, this is not the industry for you.
It is a people business at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely is the people business. But it's easy for me to say after being in the industry 25 years, Alex, it's not that hard. And even initially, I didn't need to know too much except how to communicate effectively with my client lot owners. And once I worked that out, which took me probably 3 to 6 months, the rest of it was pretty smooth sailing.
It's really communication and being present, isn't it? You know, like some of the rank and file elements of being a resident manager take care of themselves if you follow a process, but the things that bring you to the forefront and the things that people recognise as the people that own lots, that are part of the body corporate committee, is your visibility and your communication.
Yeah.
Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, Alex, I don't want you to tear up here, but I'm going to quote Queen Elizabeth, and she said that
Take me back to old lady.
It's not enough to do your job. You must be seen to be doing your job. And that's why she wore bright coloured clothes. Now, if you want to relate that to management rights, you got to make a bit of noise around your clients for them to realise that you are the guy, or your company is the person who mows the lawn, trims the trees, cleans the place up and adds value to the scheme, which effectively adds capital value to their investment if they're an investor.
One of our former guests, who was a ARAMA resident manager of the year, Georgina Bishop, was one of the first people I spoke to, and she said, just be visible when people are coming and going.
Yep.
That's half the battle won, because the people that are effectively paying your salary want to see that you're doing the job, and even if that's just wandering around with a bucket picking up some weeds and leaves off the driveway.
Wave while you're doing it.
Wave while you're doing it, communicate and be present. That ticks both of those boxes.
That's local marketing.
Yes.
Being seen. The rest of the day you might sit in, on the sun lounge, but when people are heading to work or returning from work, that's where you need to be visible.
Alex, you see that from a commercial side as well, because you've been selling management rights for the better part of 15 years or so, haven't you?
Yep. Since 2011.
So these are the elements that make for not only for a good manager, but a good business to be bought and sold as well, because that relationship with the community of the strata is part of what people are buying.
Absolutely. I mean, the value of your management rights business is predominantly, it's in your caretaking agreement, which is linked to your term. In order to maintain that value, you need to get top-ups to your agreements, which means you need to maintain a good relationship with your committee and ultimately your owners. And the rest of the value is in the letting side of the business, which means maintaining letting appointments and the size of your letting pool, which again, as Trevor said earlier, means maintaining relationships with every single owner in the building. So absolutely, it's a central tenet to management rights. It is a people business. You've got to satisfy the people you're providing a service to, and as I'm sure Trevor would agree, all of them, whether they be owner-occupiers, investors, external agents. It's really important to be seen to be neutral and transparent.
People business once again. So if the resident managers are looking after, if they're focused on pleasing the lot owners, the body corporate committee, the strata community, ARAMA supports the managers that is supporting that community. Am I saying that correctly, Trevor?
Yeah, so ARAMA is constituted in a biased manner in favour of operating members. So organisations like Resort Brokers are members of ARAMA and make a magnificent contribution. And we consider Resort Brokers to be integral supporters of operators. Without the operators, there's no wealth in the industry. So we blatantly run 90% of our benefits directly to operators, not to run their business for them, but to support them and do the things that they can't do.
Like the advocacy side, so
Absolutely.
that's, you mentioned it briefly before, that strata review happened in the previous Queensland government. Can you just explain some of the efforts that ARAMA took with the help of Alex and also some of the other members that you have to support the industry and support the businesses that are within the industry?
Yeah, so legislation runs on cycles. Lawyers will tell you that, and there are people who make careers around legislative reform. So around about every 7 to 10 years, every piece of legislation is reviewed. So the major piece of legislation in Queensland, the Body Corporate Community Management Act, was under quite a large review, a full review. I don't know what prefix.
Substantial
That's
review.
a much better word. Thank you, Frank. So and with review comes the possibility of change. And I'm pretty sure you've spoken to valuers. They'll tell you that certainty equals value. So one of the things that ARAMA set out to do is achieve nothing. So we didn't really want
You just want nothing to move. It was just a zero-sum game.
Fine as it is. Kick the can down
nothing
the
to
road.
see here.
Yeah.
Well, there's implications. This is a big business. Like we said, $9.4 billion. There's implications for change. And not to say that we don't want to move with the times. That's not that point. But there is implication.
Yeah, so ARAMA's advocacy to government, and government isn't the minister. You might think the minister runs the government. It's actually the public service.
We are not the United States.
Thank God for that, Frank. Our advocacy was all about modernising the parts of the legislation that required modernising, and not buggering it up. The key fundamentals of management rights, which are those long-term agreements, the small business approach towards operating. There's a lot of laws and a lot of rules in Queensland in particular, but that creates the certainty that the industry needs. And so we wanted to make sure that someone didn't come along and bugger it up. And that's what we tried to do.
We took the approach of trying to address some genuine concerns with relatively minor legislative reform, which could indeed give people the reform that they wanted, without being detrimental to the industry, and I think that was the important thing, wasn't it, to be able to show to government, look, you can pander to the people that have these concerns without destroying the industry.
You're right, Alex, and we understand the industry very well. I mean, the advantage of being associated with Resort Brokers as you as a director of ARAMA is that we get insight. ARAMA gets insight that we wouldn't otherwise get without your direct involvement. And so you made a massive contribution towards our advocacy, as did Trudy. And, we can go into that detail later, but what ARAMA did was facilitate that approach. And with our lawyers panel, who are all lawyers are very good at strategy. And so it wasn't so much about what law changes do we want to give up and what law changes do we want to fight hard for. It was more about what is our strategic approach. And then I remember, Alex, that you put your hand up to go away and write a submission, which I think you spent 3 solid days on nothing but coffee.
A lot of words.
You came back with about 18 pages, which we did have to trim up a little bit. And then we brought in a couple of lawyers, John Marnie, Frank Higginson, for example, who then was able to put in the sections of the Act that are relevant to the changes that we were suggesting and the improvements that we were suggesting. And we came out with some really good outcomes. And if you remember, we brought Trudy in, the minister at the time was also the Minister for Women, and Trudy Crooks, the Director of Resort Brokers, I don't need to introduce her, she led a women in management rights team. So we had about 6 or 8 operators, and they went forward to the Attorney General, who was also the Minister for Women, and they talked about the fact that the majority of management letting rights businesses are run by working mums.
Yeah, 100%.
small family businesses.
100%. It's a very, very, very broad, engagement into management rights. It's an accessible industry as well.
Yeah, it is, and it's quite diverse. And whilst there are some really important corporate operators, the genesis of management rights was the mum and dad, and it still accounts for about, well over 80% of the buildings under management are managed by small business operators. So advocacy is more like representation. So in some respects, I'm the chief spruiker for the management letting rights industry. And, we've got talented people like Alex, Trudy, lawyers like John Marnie, Frank Higginson, and ARAMA really is the sum of its parts.
We all try and do our part because we all support the industry that is supporting us. Well, and it's an important part to maintain, right?
Yeah, you're seeing advocacy in action now. You're an advocate for the industry, not because you might sell more bits, but because we believe in it. We know how it works. We see the benefits that this industry brings to small business in Queensland and in Australia, and the economic impact it brings. And we want to invite people on board. We want more.
You want the door to be open.
Absolutely.
Rather than it being an echo chamber. We don't want to be looking internally. We want this to be open and for people to realise that not only is it an industry that is a good opportunity for them and they can have some success, but they're supported accordingly.
Yeah.
I always think the advocacy side of ARAMA there's a lot of irony built with it, because it's probably the most important aspect of what ARAMA does, but it's also what people are least aware of. And Trevor also refers to ARAMA as being has a constitution of serving its members. Well, it's also the side of ARAMA which benefits a lot of other people, even those who aren't paying membership. And I always look at ARAMA as being, it's an insurance policy. At the end of the day, you're buying into a business which is based on legal agreements, which is underpinned by legislation, and ARAMA are there to protect that legislation, which protects your business. So it is, for a mum and dad membership, what is it currently at the moment, Trevor?
$60 a month.
$60 a month. It's the
Tax
best
deductible
insurance policy you'll ever buy.
Yeah.
If things had gone differently last year, people could be in a very different place right now.
So we've been talking about advocacy, and we'll get to the education piece in a minute, which is important on the CPD. But when we're talking about connection, what's some of the advice that you'd give for managers that are looking for a little bit of guidance in this space, or new people that are coming in, and what would be some of the hot takes that you'd have for new managers coming in?
Yeah, so look, if you're buying a restaurant, it's pretty important you know how to cook. So if you're buying management rights, you may not realise how important it is to communicate and connect with your client base and the people that you work with. As Alex said, it's a people industry. So what ARAMA does is we run a management rights induction training program. It's a one-day workshop, and we spend some time early in the day on the nuts and bolts of management rights, the legislation. We bring people in from the Commissioner's office to talk about the laws relating to...
Do you bring people in from throughout the operators and associates from throughout the industry, supported by the industry at large, isn't it? I've sat it myself.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And we bring investigators in from Office of Fair Trading to scare the bejesus out of people if they're misappropriating trust funds. But the second half of the day is all about relationships. It's relationships from the perspective of a committee. So a lot of people may not understand what a body corporate committee is. They may not understand strata. By the time they exit that day, that management rights induction training program, they'll know that there's a thing called a triangle of management, that there's a strata manager or body corporate manager, there's a committee with a chair, and there's you as the residential manager, and you'll understand where you fit and why it's important to have good relations with the other stakeholders as well as your customers. And the thing that binds all of that together is respectful relationships with clear communication. We support that by producing a thing called a Community Connect Toolkit. So it's a kind of like an internal marketing document that involves some template letters and some posters and things like that you can put up around the scheme to help explain and describe the business that you own and run to your clients as they're running around. So ARAMA does that. We also run an intensive half-day workshop on relationship management, particularly if you've got a problem with people, inevitably, where you have people, you have problems.
Yeah.
And so we spend half a day on giving those operators in particular some really good strategies and some comfort, a bit like a verbal cuddle to a certain extent. It's not you, it's them. But at the end of the day, customers like to think they're right, and here's some ways that you can go about making that happen.
And that relationship that begins with ARAMA sort of kicks off kind of an important point that I know ARAMA supports. And Alex, maybe you can talk a little bit about, you develop relationships with some of the associates, the lawyers and the accountants and the finance brokers. They're there at the first training at the MRITP, but that relationship about using specialists and having specialists there to support you is a core tenet of succeeding in the management rights space. Alex?
Yeah, that was a perfect segue for what I was about to say when
Right.
you asked the question, what should people, new in the industry ensure they do? First of all, sign up to ARAMA, but secondly, make sure you surround yourself with the best possible specialists. Build a relationship with a broker that you're comfortable with, who's willing to take the time to understand what you're looking for, and is willing to work with other brokers within their agency to throw the net out there to make sure you're being given good opportunities and you're being well educated in regards to what's out there. As we all know, buying management rights subject to quite extensive due diligence, so income verification, legal DD, finance, so you're going to need a good accountant to look at the figures, good lawyer to go through agreements, and a good finance broker to get you the best finance deal. Again, much better to build those relationships up front, so you've got some people that you're comfortable with that you can bounce ideas off. It's a very... It's a big industry, but it's a niche industry. People in the industry know each other. There's a really good personable quality to the industry.
Yeah, the community is strong.
Yeah, and I think once you've got that team of professionals around you, people, a lot of people that get into management rights tend to stay in it. It's an industry with a really good retention level, and most of them tend to retain those professionals. And people look at it. People that are successful in the industry look at that team look at those people around them as the team that helps them succeed in the industry. So build that team as quickly as possible.
That's an interesting point there, and that sort of rounds out that third tenet of ARAMA's engagement with the industry, and that would be the education element. So MRITP is an important part, but coming into the Queensland real estate industry specifically, continual professional development is one of those elements that came out of the reviews of with the government. What is ARAMA doing to help managers and future real estate licence holders, especially within the strata industry, help them continue their professional development and give them the points they need so their licensing is up to date?
Yeah, so Frank, let's take a step back. The majority of people, myself included, when I first came in the industry, I didn't consider myself a real estate agent, even though I had a real estate agent.
I'm not sure
license.
if I do now.
No.
I'm a small business consultant is the way I view it.
It's a bad rap. It's a bad rap to have a real estate licence, but that's the reality in Queensland and New South Wales. You're required to hold a real estate agent's licence. In some other states, there may be some exemptions. But if we're talking Queensland, where the majority of the business is done, so therefore you need to have education as a real estate agent in order to have a licence. But Queensland was the only state that didn't have an ongoing professional development a requirement.
And by that you mean more education to maintain your licence?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would talk to people who would refer to forms which were extinct in 2014. And I'd say...
It's about remaining current.
Do you have a licence?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a licence. Well, when did you do your training? 30 years ago.
Oh, you've got to dust it off to find it.
And so you don't know what you don't know. And so one of the advantages in ARAMA membership is that, we will keep you up to date so that you are ahead of any developments and you can take advantage of that and make money from that knowledge. Knowledge is power, power is money. So continual professional development or compulsory professional development is launched in Queensland for the very first time in June this year. ARAMA will launch it in July, and that will require all licensees, people who operate, to undertake training and education every year in order to keep their licence current.
So how does that work? So there's you can't just buy your ARAMA membership and then you're up to date with professional development. You need to sit some training, but ARAMA will help facilitate that.
We're going to make it as easy as possible. So one of the big advantages is lots of advantages which are intangible advantages in being an ARAMA member, one of which is we can get into rooms and doors that you can't as an operator, or with all due respects as a commercial enterprise. But ARAMA can because we're an industry association. So we get invited onto lots of committees, lots of boards, lots of councils. And in this regard, we're invited by the Queensland government to be on the selection panel for the subjects that the government would eventually approve for CPD. So and also to create the process. So ARAMA, REIQ and the Stock and Station Agents are 3 associations, and we're working with government people from OFT. So we firstly created the rules, and we used ARAMA in its advocacy, used low hurdle, low energy, so make it as easy as possible for licensees.
Because everybody's busy, right? And so you want to make it as frictionless as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, that was a very important tenet. It's still not as easy as I'd like it to be, but it's not as hard as it otherwise would be if we weren't in that room advocating on behalf of the industry.
Therein lies the difference.
And so that's the first thing, is low hurdle, soft touch, and they're words that I continually remind the Office of Fair Trading that's what industry requires, okay?
And I think the engagement with ARAMA with this extra component of continual professional development just aids the value of being an ARAMA member. There's a number of reasons why you should be, not least of which supporting the industry.
It probably does more than support it. In this instance, it probably almost completely justifies it. I mean, to be completely candid, and I hope Trevor doesn't mind me saying it, but if you're not an ARAMA member and moving forward and you go to a real estate agency trainer to do these CPD points, the cost of doing that is probably going to be pretty similar to getting an ARAMA membership.
Well, and not as specific.
So really, for those,
Spot on.
The specificity is what's important, and that's where ARAMA comes into its own, is by supporting the industry with real training and importance that is relevant.
We're selecting the courses.
Yeah, that's a big deal. You've heard that here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
ARAMA's offering CPD
easier and more
it's
relevant.
Being very relevant and is part of the selection process to make sure that it is not just training and paperwork for paperwork's sake.
Good governance is about it being practical. And so they're not. It's not an argument we have with government about making sure the courses are relative and applicable to what an operator would be doing in their daily work.
It's in our interest, isn't it, to make members better at their jobs?
It's in the government's interest as well.
Everyone's interest.
Everybody's interest. So things happen, and this is the mystery about advocacy. It's like chess. You don't really. It is a competitive environment. Advocacy. You're trying to spruik the best things about the industry, and there'll be people who aren't true believers. I feel sorry for them, but they're out there. So when it comes to CPD, we don't have a hard sell to convince the government to make sure that the training modules are in the best interest of the industry. The government are genuinely, both sides of government, are genuinely interested in good governance, and they want to know what it is that industry want. What does ARAMA want? And so ARAMA tells them what they want. We make sure that the subjects that are selected are applicable and can be put into action in a very practical way by operators, and they get accredited for the points that are required to achieve your CPD. Now, if we weren't in that room, then, as Alex said, it may well be something that's really about sales and auctioning of real estate, which is not what we commonly do.
Yeah, that's right. It's not as specific as we need it to be.
Or it might be how to gut a pig.
Yeah.
And we don't need to know that. The stock and station agents do, but we don't.
That's what we as brokers do. So we can sort that side of it out.
Yeah.
Look, we're running out of time here because we could talk about this for a while. Round us out, Trevor and Alex. Tell us where people can go and get more information and where people can be members of ARAMA, and when the CPD, just remind everybody when that CPD is coming in and how they get involved to make sure that their licensing is up to date as possible.
Before we do that, Frank, I want to give you a scoop.
Oh, please.
Just for viewers of this podcast, okay? So ARAMA will be launching CPD in July, and you don't really need to, if you're a member of ARAMA, relax. We'll keep you informed. There will be a lot of information that will create some commercial pressure on people who don't know what's happening. They'll be marketed to by others who will tell them that they've got to drop everything and go and get their CPD. Relax.
Okay.
ARAMA will deliver CPD free of charge to ARAMA members, but it's not, you don't have to jump at it on the 1st of August.
Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of a runway here.
About a year and a half for some people.
Oh, wow.
But if you're not an ARAMA member, now's
You
the
won't
time
know that.
to go and get now's the time to go and get your membership.
Absolutely. If you're not connected to ARAMA, you won't know that. You'll waste money on doing training that you don't need at a time when it's not suitable to you. If you are an ARAMA member, then the money that you do spend on membership will be repaid several times in relevant information that will get you your points.
I think that that's a hell of a way to end. I think that ARAMA continues to be relevant and continues to push the boundaries of the industry in helping managers, and providing that avenue for CPD is only the next iteration of ARAMA's effectiveness. So thank you both for the work that you do. It's tireless. I know you've got another thing to go to straight away, Trevor, because your workday is never done. But thank you for joining us here on RB Radio. And once again, thank you to ARAMA for helping the industry progress.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much, Trevor.
everybody.
Thank you, Frank.
Good luck.
Cheers. Thank you for joining us at RB Radio.
If you enjoyed the insights from this episode, we'd love your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Stay connected with us on all social media platforms at Resort Brokers. We're excited to continue this journey with you and see you in the next episode.
See you then.